Hello there, folks. This is Keanotix, and I'm back in, not quite in Ultrakill. Well, I am playing Ultrakill in the background, but this is basically me doing a voiceover or some gameplay I've recorded after a couple of the patches that Akita and company have made since the launch of Fraud. And I wanted to go over a few things regarding my thoughts about this new layer. Not to mention some of the changes that I personally can keep track of. There was a lot of changes in the patches. One really big one, and then one sort of smaller hotfix version. Plus, I wanted to show this video off because this was me using the Slab Marksman revolver. It's a slightly different kettle of fish when it comes to the mechanics of it. It doesn't split the coins anymore, but the trade-off being is you get more damage out of the basic pistol, but also instead of the split coin when you shoot the coin at the same appropriate moment, what it does instead is that it skips the reload of the pistol, so you get to fire it a lot faster. Like when that, you just saw it there, when V1 flicks the gun around, it means you've done it successfully and you can shoot again really quickly. So instead of like flipping one coin and trying to get a split shot, what you're doing is trying to chain multiple coins together very, very quickly by using basically a coin chain combo, if you will. This I only kind of worked out recently. I knew there was like a trick to this was updated in the full Arsenal update, and I never got round to using it or trying it out, simply because I was so used to being able to split my coins to take care of fodder enemies. But I thought for this video I'd try it out, so you'll see me trying to use it, not very particularly well, but there you go. Anyway, I wanted to make this video to go over my thoughts about Fraud, at launch and since the patch. Good news is they have addressed some of the more egregious performance issues in this layer, especially with the more busier fights. It's not going to benefit me as much because I'm still running this on a potato, so please excuse any kind of frame rate issues you see. This time it probably is a little bit more my fault, although Akita and Co have said that they are working to address the performance issues as we go. But at the moment, since the team has worked very hard to get this update out and did a day one patch, they are going to take a short break, which I totally agree. They've done absolutely a tremendous job throughout. Yeah, it's a bit janky, but considering what they are trying to achieve here is no short of a miracle that it works at all, really. We haven't seen... Basically, the idea of this layer is using portal mechanics. What do I mean by portal mechanics? Basically, a window into another section of the room or a level that basically sends you one to the other side of the room by just passing through the door. Hence the term portal. It was... I don't know about pioneering, because technically speaking, whenever you're climbing stairs in the build engine, you're technically speaking constantly teleporting up small chunks of a level. If you look at a spiral staircase, for example, in the build engine editor, you'll see that the staircase is made up of much smaller rooms, kind of chained together by teleporters. This is a sort of similar notion, in that you're basically doing a very quick teleport. The only difference being is you can see where the destination is on the other side of the door. I use the term door loosely. So them employing that to such a creative degree in this layer, it's absolutely fantastic. I cannot imagine the absolute headache, both technically and design-wise, that would have caused. But I'm glad that they got to finally realize the vision. It was the reason they decided to do the revamp update in the first place. Basically, the original engine was running on basically like duct tape and PVA glue, for lack of a better word, at least in the devs' words. So he wanted to do something a little bit more creative with the Fraud layer when they finally got round to it. So they realized they couldn't do it with the current engine, and he couldn't do it alone. So what happened was a bunch of programmers and artists that have worked on Ultrakill content, either mods or fan art or even just like soundtracks, they've all kind of joined the team to help Akita realize this particular vision. And they're all wonderful folks. I should encourage you to check them out in the museum mode, where they've actually gotten their little stands, little plushies, little bits of everything, even little info dumps about them. And it's actually fascinating stuff. But the revamp update was needed in order to accomplish this layer. So you got to bet that everyone was excited to see what was needing such a drastic engine change. Now, an engine change is not an easy thing to do. Lord knows everyone's heard the legend of the Duke Nukem Forever, and how many engine changes it went through. But that was more the case of the producer getting very excited about the hot new FPSs were coming out, and he wanted that for his new game, and that was a whole story in and of itself. I would recommend watching Mac McMuscles' video on the situation. If not Mac McMuscles, surely a lot of people have documented by now. But thankfully, that did not happen for Ultrakill. They just needed one. They needed to just build one new engine. They did. They addressed some design and art style changes throughout the game while they were at it. It was a good little chance to effectively remaster the game as they went, and a lot of the changes are really are very welcomed. Not to mention a couple of bosses had got a few updates. You may have seen in my little series on the revamp update that Leviathan boss, all the way back in the Wrath layer, got a little bit of a facelift. Well, I'll say a facelift. You can't really fix that face, unfortunately. But yeah, his mechanics were jazzed up a little bit. Anyway, back to Fraud. This layer is going to have one little problem already that I can see, is that it kind of relies on players going in blind to get the maximum effectiveness out of it. If you kind of see or know what's going to happen, some of the more creative little tricks that the game pulls on you is going to be a bit lost, and repeated playthroughs is going to maybe start getting a little annoying, or the effect is going to kind of get lost a little bit. But hey, that could be said about most games anyway. But the levels themselves are very elaborate, very complicated. It can lead to a lot of people getting lost. But speaking of getting lost, one of the things they did address was a complaint I had in one of my videos, and you probably demonstrated in one of my videos, where I talked about after you cut the power in 8-2, the sort of office complex, where you cut the power and then you exit and you're supposed to go into the little shop that's nearby, but because you're not seeing the button immediately after you go out the door, you kind of end up wandering around, and unless you already knew about the button beforehand and happen to remember it, you get yourself a little bit lost as to where to go. They actually addressed this. They've redesigned that room. Now when you do exit the door, you do see the shop and the button immediately as you open the door. So it's a lot more clearer now. They fixed that conveyance issue that I was talking about. I believe conveyance is the right word. Please tell me in the comments if that's not correct, but I believe conveyance is the word. Anyway, they had to redesign that little section because they did notice a lot of people were getting lost. I wasn't the only one, thank God, and I wasn't the only one having performance issues either, which I was happy to find out. Although, like I said about my potato PC, the bear. But there was been a few changes. Some of the fights have been rebalanced slightly. Some chunks of level have either been added or subtracted. The outdoor area at the end of this level, for example, 8-1, it now has bounce pads off the side inside the pit, so that if you did happen to fall off during the scuffle, you had a way to recover from it without losing a whole chunk of your health just because you happened to be getting a little bit excited and forgot where your feet were landing. Unfortunately, they haven't exactly reduced the difficulty, but then again, I'm playing on violent. I dug my own grave, I guess. Can't say anything about any changes for the brutal difficulty setting, I've not touched Brutal in this at all. I'm nowhere near ready for it. So if you're wanting to see if they've done anything about the Brutal difficulty, you're probably going to have to look at the patch notes yourself. Sorry. What else have they changed? Yes, so they have updated the 2 boss fights in this layer. The Mirror Reaper, I'm sorry to say, has actually been made harder somehow because better players than me have found that the Mirror Reaper was a bit lacking because they found a way to basically destroy it in basically seconds. They got like combos of like saw blades and fire starters and basically set the thing alight and ripped it to death with like the little saw blade magnet trap. Not to mention a few other favorite combos. Basically, it did not stand a chance against seasoned players. So what they did was they increased its health by a small chunk and made it resistant to saw blades and being set on fire. Good news for the veteran players, bad news for amateur players like me. So I'm going to have to actually dig deep and find out how that boss ticks. But yeah, I still struggled with the boss. It's not nearly as hyper-aggressive. I will say that. They look like they took the AI a little bit. It's a little less janky. It does try to retreat when you start hitting it really hard. And starts using those murder balls more. But the 2 things, you can in fact destroy the red hands that it throws at you. I'm not entirely clear as to how though, because I tried it a few times and maybe I just missed my shots. And maybe you have to hit the palms of the hands in order to destroy them, but they should be destroyed by weapons fire now, so you can give yourself a little breathing from that. And also the little poison balls it throws out, they can't be parried, but they can be destroyed by projectile weapons. So basically anything that's not the pistol or the railgun, or at least the 2 railgun variants that don't use the projectile. Yes, but the boss is still kind of hard. It is still very chaotic, it still feels janky to me personally, but then that could easily just be down to me being a scrub. No change there then. The AI for the Providences has also been tweaked slightly. Not to mention apparently they had made changes to old enemies and bosses with this update, and it did kind of break a few mechanics. The coin flipping mechanic, apparently playing in Fraud, was a little bit broken for the pros at least. Their more advanced tricks were not working as intended. The coins weren't flying towards enemies as they should. That may have something to do with the whole portal mechanics there, because you'll see sometimes when you're playing this level that the enemies have trouble trying to track you down, like trying to follow you, because technically speaking, you are both closer and further away while standing in the same spot from different angles. Like you could be visible to them through one of the portals they're standing next to, but in the level the room you're sitting in, they're a little bit further away. So the AI can get confused. They have tried to address this, and they've also tried to address the rendering that happens for those portals. If you're far enough away from a portal that you can't see it anyway, they have turned on occlusion, or at least improved the occlusion on it. So it should be less taxing on your computer. Also, I found the soap in this, by the way. The soap is in this level. It is a godsend. Unfortunately, it is basically good for one shot. So performance has been improved slightly. I did actually also look up basically all the secrets and all the little Easter eggs that I did not find in my playthrough because I didn't know about it, and I don't tend to use the cheat mode very often, but there's a couple of really cool little secrets that you find if you go for no clip mode and go for certain areas. Speaking of things you're not supposed to see, there was a bug introduced after the first big update where if you're, say for example, in the space section in 8-3, going out of bounds would sometimes see, you might see these little half-transparent oops boxes, which were little barriers to help you prevent going completely out of bounds and breaking the level, or, well, falling off the level and breaking yourself, really. They weren't supposed to be able to see those little bounding boxes. I mean, imagine they're for debugging purposes. I actually managed to find one. I don't think it was this level or the next level, but I did find one. I think it was this level, in fact, and the I don't know if I'm supposed to see them or not, or the collision behind them was broken or something like that. But there was a problem with those boxes, so they fixed that too. Unfortunately, like what else have they fixed? There's a whole bunch of stuff. Like there was nerfs to the chainsaw shotgun. Apparently it was, and the jackhammer. Yes, so the jackhammer, which I don't use very often, that has had a nerf added onto it. Before the jackhammer, if using this a certain way, like you could get the maximum amount of damage on it, or get 3 shots of medium damage on it, and you increase the damage by basically increasing your velocity at the time that you hit the target. It is very dependent on your current momentum, and the higher your momentum, the more damage you do. But if you do that at maximum velocity more than once, it would require a quick cooldown before you could use it again. Now, unfortunately, what they've done is you could get around this cooldown by switching to an alternate version of the jackhammer. Like you went from the blue one to the green one to the red one, and the cooldowns would be independent for each variant. Unfortunately, now or at least it seems to be the case that this cooldown applies to all 3 of them at once. I think this was a bug in the first patch. I don't know if it was fixed in the second, or if it was an intended balance change. I don't use the jackhammer much, so I wasn't paying attention to that particular change. But it's something you should be aware of if you do play this game and you do actually take the time to master the jackhammer. So some other guns were changed or updated as well. Again, for more detailed information, you might need to check the patch notes. I think this is probably a good thing. They're going to keep tweaking this as they go. It's probably not going to be the last time we're going to get balance changes or bug fixes to these weapons. They are still working on this. This is still technically early access, and we still haven't got the last, well, basically the last 2 main levels in the game, which all take place in Layer 9 of Treachery. Lord knows how long we'll need to wait for that one. Hopefully not too long, but this is going to be the grand finale. They need to nail that one more than anything. Not to mention, the secret level for this layer is still not ready yet. And it'd be very interested to see what they come up with this time, because I think I said in the previous video that all the secret levels have had a sort of joke element to it, I suppose. They've all been like homages to certain other games, not necessarily action games. The first one was horror, the second one was a puzzle game, the third one was, well, I think that was like the dating sim rip-off parody, and then you had their Crash Bandicoot clone. The list goes on. Layer 7 had a Viscera cleanup duty clone in it, which, considering this game's blood mechanics, is kind of hilarious. Not hilarious to those that are playing it at the time, though, I must admit. Oh, there was a bug with that level, actually. There was some bugs introduced to that particular level, like if the blood wasn't cleaning up properly, and certain mechanics in that level weren't working, so you kind of did get a bit soft-locked, I guess. But, yeah, I am just winging this, unfortunately. I do apologize. Okay, so what do I think about fraud? I do generally like this. I do like it when games do something unique. I'm glad it's not just a case of it's another set of rooms that you have to get yourself through. Yes, there's new enemies. There was always that. That was always going to be a thing. And I do overall like the new enemies for the most part. The Providence one, I think I like them better than I like Virtues, just because they're not hiding in a little cubbyhole and blasting you with like their omnipresent beam of light, and then get enraged if they miss 3 times. I know that's violent. I know I should be prepared for that kind of unfairness, but it is still very aggravating. Providence, on the other hand, They do try and remain in your sight, although they stay back as well, and they actively try and dodge most of your attacks. They are the one enemy, I think they were created basically because to counteract whiplash tactics, because they avoid the whiplash like the plague. And I kind of like that, but also I did want to actually learn how to use the whiplash correctly. I need to use it more often in my play style. So to find out they've now actively made an enemy that's almost anti-whiplash is kind of hilarious in a way. I do like those, and they are the ones that utilize the new pink or purple beam mechanic, where anything purple cannot be dashed through using the iframes of the dash. That will not save you. You have to either physically dodge the beams or find a way to parry it or something, which you probably saw in this video at some point already. It is actually a challenge in the first level, which is a good way of telling you, yeah, by the way, you can parry this. I like that. 8-2 is still a bit of a weird one to me. I think it's going to be the start where people notice the sluttery physics bending mechanics, like you just saw there, where I jump up to reach the, at the time, roof, to get access to the enemies. And you'll see if in the next few rooms where that is applied more. What's the word? Well, basically, yeah, they utilize that a lot more. It takes a lot of getting used to, and I don't think I ever will, especially like when it comes to 8-3, where it goes proper crazy with it in terms of like disorienting the player by basically changing the center of gravity around and making the rooms spin in place, and then joining rooms that you're sort of looking into also spinning in a different direction. It takes a lot of getting used to. I cannot imagine how anyone has already started P-ranking this stuff. They must have much better sort of reactions and control than I do, and you know, yeah, great for them. But I do think one thing they are never going to be able to patch out, and I'll be interested to see how they fix this, is people with motion sickness are genuinely getting quite troubled, let's just say, by the sort of warped physics, shall we say, around this whole layer. So it'd be kind of interesting to see if they find a way to deal with this, like maybe some kind of accessibility setting where it's less egregious. But I think that's also one of the things they have addressed in some of the patches to make it less janky looking and make it a little bit more smoother. It's just going to be, I think, a problem for some people who are wanting to play more of this game. But yeah, as for P-ranking these things, P-ranking this layer, I honestly do not think I'm not going to be able to do it anytime soon. I would need like hours upon hours of practice in order to get anywhere close to like P-ranking these levels, and which is a shame really, because I really want to find out what's in P3. I have P-ranked Act 2 before, got to P-2, and found Sisyphus. Never beat him, but I did find him in Standard. And I do mean Standard. Screw trying to do that in Violence, let me tell you. Oh, I cannot imagine what they're going to do for P3. That is going to be insane. Anyway, but where was I? Oh yeah, 8-3. 8-3 is probably the worst for that sort of weird, warped, mind-bending technology. That's where they properly go ham on this new Portal stuff, especially with the spinning rooms and stuff like that. It's cool as an effect, it's cool as on a technical level that it works without basically dying. Well, I say that, it tries to die several times, at least for me. But as for actual sort of gameplay, I don't know. Maybe there's a trick to it that I'm not aware of. Maybe there's like a certain tactic you can employ so it's less disorienting, less deadly, basically. Like, there's a way so it doesn't screw with your tactics and things like that. If it's there, I don't see it. Call me an old man. So I genuinely, it is going to be very difficult for players that are not as skilled to get through it on any higher difficulty than standard. So I don't know. I think I'm still a bit sore about that whole affair. I'm still sore about the Mirror Demon. What do you expect? But the other problem I have is that, well, not well. 8-3 was still not. I think 8-3 just in general is just far too long. And I suppose you can level that 8-2 as well. Like, these levels go on forever. I thought back in Layer 1, the Heresy level, that was like one level in basically a sequence of what basically looks like actual hell, like a level in hell that actually looks like hell. Yeah, and it's like the last hurrah for that layer. They throw everything at you in the worst possible way, and it can get very, very tiring to survive that entire gauntlet of constant pressure. And then you get to this point in Layer 8, and you find that basically what they've done is they've done 2 of these kind of levels. I mean, level 1 wasn't as bad, I find, but still, these levels are very long. So, like, if you're doing, like, P-rank runs, and you manage to die by one silly mistake right at the end, that's going to get people's goats. I mean, you see me struggling in this game, trying to get past all this nonsense without dying and not being successful whatsoever. Not to mention the Reaper. I still don't know how you beat the Mirror Reaper the first try. That's still think, yeah, I think that's one of my main complaints still about the Fraud layer, is that the levels are just a little bit too long. But I suppose it's just they wanted to get all their ideas in, and God help them, they did. But I do think maybe just because I've played the earlier levels so many times now at this point that I'm used to the levels being a little bit shorter. But you do start feeling the level's length being a problem, especially in this layer. And maybe I'm just old and tired. Who knows? Especially because I know the fake out exits are not the main problem for me. I know that was going to probably be a thing, considering the nature of the layer. That's the part that doesn't bother me. It's simply just how much longer the levels last even after that. And yeah, I don't know. I know I sound bitter, but I'm honestly just trying to come up with like genuine criticisms which I don't think are going to easily be patched out. I mean, I don't know how you patch out the length of a level apart from just deleting entire rooms. And I didn't even play through all the rooms in 8-2, like, because they still had that secret room that I never got around to actually finishing. I know what it's for, I know what it does. I even got the code to work, and found the exit, which is still blocked off with an under construction sign. You're not going to be able to play the secret mission anytime soon, so I would say trying to hunt that down until you get to that, until they do finally launch it. But yeah, no, the length I still maybe think is a bit of a problem. I would not try and do Fraud in one sitting. I'll just say that. Not unless you have gotten the routes down, have gotten like all the skills necessary to beat those encounters quickly, and have got the boss fights nailed down to a T. Now, speaking of bosses, 8-4. I genuinely didn't have as many problems with it as everyone else seems to have. A lot of people found that last boss sort of underwhelming, and I sort of see what they mean. It didn't take me nearly as many tries. It also didn't feel as skillful to fight. I don't know how you explain this. Like, all the mechanics you've learned up until this point, the maneuverability, the combos with the guns, the abilities that your melee attack has, a big chunk of that knowledge basically goes out the window because you're suddenly having to get used to this whole free fall mechanic, and the game suddenly becomes a 3D version of those Toho games, like the old bullet hell ones, which is the only thing I could think of what it kind of reminds me of. I just kept thinking over and over again, like when I was weaving in and out of those big laser beams the monster was, Garyon was throwing at me. I was thinking, this is probably what a Toho character, this is probably the perspective a Toho character goes through. Like in the big giant monster, you're flying around, you're kind of dodging in and out of lasers and shockwaves and things like that. That's what kept running through my head, and I can't be the I can't be the only person who made that observation. That's what it kind of becomes, and I don't know if it really kind of belongs in Ultrakill. Granted, again, it's them trying to do some experimental mechanics, because this was kind of there to do it. They've got this far with the game. It's well within their right to basically start messing around, trying something different, something new. And I just think that particular case was probably not the best time to do it, like with your boss fight. They do at least give you a small fight with virtues and providences to kind of teach you what you're going to be up against and getting used to the movement controls of that particular part before the monster turns up. I just wish that, well, to be fair, like, they did at least let you restart from Garyon himself once you actually reach him. You don't have to fight the angels again, thank goodness. Oh, speaking of angels, I'll need to go back to discussing power, but there's not really much to say. It's basically like Gabriel Light, and once you do kind of work out when and where you get to parry them, basically the fight's over. You parry them, you slide underneath, and then you juggle them endlessly with pistol shots and all your other guns, like the same way you would like for Gabriel's version 1 fight. And they're very vulnerable to that. The only problem I really have is when there's two at once. That's part I still haven't quite got the hang of. But waiting for that projectile for them to fling out in order to parry them, that is probably going to be your best part to try and parry. If you're quick enough or close enough to actually hit them, they really take a lot of damage and they really don't like getting hit by that. And then the rest is basically just trying to work out which of the various sword strikes from their combos, which they call out, which part of those is melee vulnerable. Once you kind of nail those down, they're probably a piece of cake. So, yeah, not much more than that. So, back to Garyon. Garyon, yeah, they actually did a quick tweak to his fight too. So when you get down to, like, he now has actually, like, a little bit more health. He has a second phase, where instead of like free falling down one long tube, the tube, quote unquote, starts rotating in place. So you're kind of getting this weird visual noise in the background to kind of distract you. And remember when I said earlier about people with motion sickness going to be struggling to play this particular layer? That is probably not going to help. But yeah, no, they've tweaked the Garyon a little bit as well. Tried to make him a little less easy, but there's not really much they could do. It's still fairly simple. I say fairly simple, I still died a couple of times to him, but once you kind of learned how to dodge and weave out of the laser beams, it's not nearly as problematic as, say, some of the other boss fights in the game. And I think because they waited this long for Layer 8 to come out, and they were kind of hoping it would either be Gabriel or another angel or another big character, but instead they get another sort of malformed demon character. And at least according to other people, at least, those were always their least favorite fights. Like, the Leviathan is a joke to most people, which I find kind of slightly annoying, because I thought that was a really cool sort of spectacle, if anything. Plus, it's a good way to fill around with a whiplash. But Garyon, I can't pronounce his name. Forgive me if I'm mispronouncing his name, but Garyon, I don't know. He's going to be divisive no matter what. And he's not the last boss, but he's almost like the penultimate final boss. And to see the kind of reception he got is kind of disappointing, but I don't know. I don't have as big a problem with him as everyone else does. But I do understand where they're coming from. And yeah, fair enough, he could be improved. But what can we do? They'll probably keep tweaking that poor thing until the cows come home. So I'm looking forward to what kind of mess that turns out to be. God knows I don't need him to have any more health or make him any harder, if that's alright. Can we leave this one alone, lads? Please? I don't know, it's like... I still had fun with the thing. I loved the trippiness of it. I did like the fake out they do at the start of level 3. Which, by the way, I didn't find all the variations of it in my playthrough. But it does cycle through between 4 different entry rooms. And they've added the text box that appears for those levels to appear when you enter that room, just to kind of play a little bit more on the fake out aspect, which I love. That part was really cool. I liked that a lot. It's just that particular level is so long, especially because it's got one of the split paths in it, which has a secret boss fight, which I swear to God I am not doing. I'll maybe do that one at some point, because the reward is some extra lore from some texts, both the regular and the sort of hell kind, which may allude to some long discussed fan theories about the plot and who the final boss might be. Well, like, I don't know, like, there's probably so much more to say and mention, but at the same time, this is one of those cases where you kind of ought to see this stuff for yourself. I mean, granted, this game is not exactly easy on beginners, and it's going to be difficult to get into. I saw a player last night on stream playing for it for the first time, and oh dear lord, the backscene was immense, and yeah, I was probably guilty of doing the same thing, but you want to both let them discover the cool stuff on their own, but at the same time, there's so much cool tech to discover. There's so much stuff that never gets explained in the game, never gets pointed out, unless you've already seen someone else do it on like a YouTube video. And I think that's a bit of a shame, because I don't want them to completely tutorialize every single little thing, but even just like, I don't know, the same way that you get challenges to sort of demonstrate possible combos with certain characters, I think there could be a similar kind of sparring ground kind of mode. Not just the sandbox. The sandbox is basically the training mode, but I mean like an actual sort of training thing where it teaches you what to do, like what sequence of events to reenact in order to complete certain combos and things like that. That would be kind of something cool to see, I think. But it does also require the game to A, be fully finished, and B, I know they said they've got the full arsenal out, but I don't trust them to maybe not add one. Well, they've still got to add one more little thing, which is the yellow fist, wherever that's going to be. It might be something called the God Fist, just based on the fact that the lair itself is called God Fist. Sorry, the act itself is called God Fist Suicide. So I think the hand in question is going to be called the God Fist. And there's already speculations about how you go about attaining that. But yeah, no, the full arsenal has been revealed. We have all the weapons that are probably going to be available in the game, and it is sitting at a decent amount. Adding any more would probably just start bloating it, and there's enough now that people can come up with enough combinations of builds, of their personal favorite builds, to suit their playstyle, and I think it's enough. I wouldn't mind maybe the odd extra gun, or maybe another alternate for, say, the rocket launcher, maybe the rail cannon, but I don't think they'll ever do an alternate rail cannon, because they didn't even bother giving the rail cannon secondary functions, because there was already a beast, and to do any more, I think, would start muddying the water, would start diluting the ale, sort of diluting the solution, if you know what I mean. But anyway, so final thoughts. Yes, I think fraud layer is very advanced. It's a technical marvel. It's wonderful to watch other people's reacting to it. It is like going through basically a spooky mansion or doing an escape room. It's really cool the first time you go through it. Maybe kind of annoying in some places if you're just trying to get to the damn end, but it's great. It's a lot of fun. It's lovely to see the sort of creativity on display. Repeated playthroughs, however, probably lose a little bit of that magic and maybe just start getting annoying after a while. Maybe it's hard to say. Maybe it's just down to personal tastes. That's probably just a little personal thing for me. It's going to be interesting to see if they can in fact improve the performance a little bit more. I feel as though that although they have improved the performance in some places, there's still a lot of spottiness in terms of the frame rate here and there. You're probably seeing a chunk of it in this video on running on my little potato. There's probably going to be some. I don't think there's going to be a lot they can do ultimately. It's going to just be down to, yeah, you probably need to maybe upgrade your computer. But I like playing Boomer Shorts because they never did require that. So I do hope the performance gets tweaked furthermore. It would be nice to have, but I think considering what this layer is trying to do, I think there's going to have to be a bit of a compromise here and there, which is going to be a bit of a shame, but I don't know. I'm not a game developer, so I can only make the suggestion. Whether or not it's possible or not, that's up to the devs. And I do want to say that I think they've done an incredible job with this, and I hope they they continue to do an incredible job with this game, because I absolutely still love it to bits, despite all the belly aching I've been doing since like day one of this. Well, throughout my little playthrough, and of not just layer 8, but like the rest of the layers as well, and the rest of the acts. I get frustrated because I love it, and I want it to love me back. I don't know. I suppose at this point it's basically just going to be me either rambling, ranting, or gushing. So, but yeah, no, it's great. It's great. It's still a little bit janky in places. It's still needing maybe a few tweaks here and there, a little bit fine tuning. Maybe we'll get that in the future. Lord knows they've been doing it before throughout the game. We'll probably get more of it in the future and down the line. If not, there's always mods. And yeah, long may it continue. But the devs are going to have a little break, and yeah, I think they ought to. Because this sounds like this was a massive headache to get out the door. And yeah, no, I actually I would slow clap. I don't know how that's going to turn out in the recording. They've also, oh god, I haven't even gone anything over about the cyber grind yet, but you probably already kind of figured out that the new monsters in this layer are now part of the cyber grind, and any sort of AI that was kind of exclusive to the levels has now been adjusted so that they actually behave correctly in the cyber grind. Apparently they weren't doing that before. But I don't really do much of the cyber grind these days. That's a different kettle of fish altogether. But yeah, no, the fraud update has been a real good time. It's been fun to make the videos. It's been fun to play through, and it has made me a better player because of it. I think I learned some new tricks. I forced myself to adapt and try out new tactics. It has got me to break a few dirty habits. Well done for that. And yeah, I'm eager to see more. I cannot wait to see what Treachery looks like. It's going to be a blast, and I am looking forward to the secret mission. I might do a little video on it when it comes out. I don't know. We'll see. I didn't bother doing a video on violence ones because it would honestly look like paint. It would look like paint drying. We probably won't see a video of that from me, at least, but who knows. So that has been a small little I suppose, retrospective about the fraud layer from yours truly. I hope you've enjoyed my inane dribble. I'll probably do more of these at some point, but I just thought I'd do one for this particular topic because it has been on my mind for the last half of a year, ever since they announced the layer was coming, ever since they did that trailer, and ever since soon.tm was posted on the flipping website. I will give you soon.fucking.tm, I swear to God. So yeah, I think we'll leave it there, folks. I don't know how to end these things, so do please forgive me for rambling on for so long. But thank you for, if you've gotten to this point in the video, thank you very much for listening. If you want to see more of these kind of retroactive style videos, please let me know in the comments, and I'll try my best to improve these, and maybe I'll make more of these. This was somewhat fun to do. It's nice to kind of get a lot of this stuff off my chest. If you want a more detailed breakdown of what has changed and what's been updated in the various patches, I can recommend the channel Linguini and Lasagna. I think that's how the right way around. That man has broken down the changes in a much more finer detail and technical level, and he's a much better player than I am. If you want to see how this is done properly, this is the guy you watch. Totes recommend that particular channel. But for now, folks, I'm going to call it here. I have been Keanotix. This has been Ultrakill Fraud Layer Retrospective, and I shall see you next time. Ta-ra for now.